Hey, it's your girl, Dr. D, and I am here with Tia Robinson for our second episode of S.O.S, Sisters Overcoming Stress. Thank you guys for joining us. Tia, how you feeling?
Hey, everyone. I'm feeling good. How are you feeling?
I'm good. So, we're a few days out from Valentine's Day.
Yes, and I want to ask,
Go ahead.
how was your Valentine's Day?
My Valentine's Day was good, right? So I'm 6.5 years into this relationship with this man who I'm completely in love with. We're engaged, and we're in San Diego, and it was a raining crazy. We went to lunch and both looked at each other and we were like, yeah, we're just going home and canceling everything. That's what we did. You hype yourself up. We had reservations at this lighthouse for lunch, which was actually beautiful. And we had reservations to go see the new Taraji P. Henson movie, What Do Men Want, right? Which we're actually going to do tomorrow. It was torrential rains, girl.
Oh,
and
yeah, it was that. Let's just stay in the house and Netflix and chill.
Yes. It's so funny because I look at him and I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go home? And he's like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want, this is like,
I'm not getting this, and I'm not getting this question wrong. I'm not getting this question wrong. What do you want to do?
Yes. That's a little bit of what I want to talk about today, right? Is the pressure that we put on Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. And so it got to the point where neither one of us wanted to do anything, but neither one of us wanted to be the one that canceled Valentine's Day.
Exactly. Like, well, you canceled Valentine's Day. Well, you said you didn't want to do anything. Like, yeah, I get it.
So we did. We postponed things, and tomorrow we're gonna go see the movie. But it was nice. It's always nice to be with him. It's always nice to have time to feel connected and be intimate. And I think there should be a day for that. I don't know that I need all this hoopla around Valentine's Day being the day. But
yeah.
How was your Valentine's Day?
It was great. I'm single and I did absolutely nothing. I didn't have to worry about Valentine's Day. I didn't have to set an expectation. I didn't have to rise to anyone's expectations. Like, I literally went to the supermarket, grabbed me some snacks, took them home, grabbed the remote, watch TV. Like, that was my Valentine's Day. Like, I didn't pick up the phone. I laughed at a couple of people trying to get the last little bit of roses in the Kroger.
$1,000 a bouquet.
I mean, he's all dead, dried up roses. I was like, really? But it was like 5:00, so people are like, I've been to a couple of stores and this is all you have. So I had to chuckle in terms of people fighting over dead roses, but that's neither here nor there. Not my problem.
I have to say, though, that's a great metaphor for what Valentine's has become.
What, dried up roses?
People fighting for dead, dried up roses. That is a perfect visual, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I think when you are a newer couple, I shouldn't even say that. I think that there are various different stages in relationships where a day like Valentine's Day is needed to reconnect and to express that deep emotional value that you have for a person. But I mean, I just don't know about every year. I feel like it's something that you should be doing on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And if you're waiting for one day a year to be able to be romantic, it's a problem. So, and then also, some people are just not holiday people. So, for the folks that are not necessarily that, how is it that you're showing up and you're expressing your love for your significant other or for yourself on a daily basis? Yeah. So, I'm not dating by choice. Let's say that, by choice.
To be clear, because she's fly.
Exactly. We ain't never had no problems with pulling no. Let's be clear about that. But by choice, like there's just so many other things that I want to focus on, and self-care really is at the priority of that list. Self-care, just focusing on myself and my well-being. And a day like Valentine's Day can be one of those days where I can continue to focus on my self-worth and my well-being, and cherish myself and pat myself on the back when it comes to accomplishments and things of that sort. Or I could just be like, maybe I'll call such and such and try to reconnect, and that's not what I want for myself personally. There's so many other things that I want to do. So it's really just, I think it's good to have a day to be able to really connect from an emotional deep level when you're in a relationship, but then also it's also good when you're not in a relationship, when you're single and you're by yourself. It's just how you utilize that time.
Yeah,
that's my
and
take.
I mean, if we're talking about deep emotional connections, that really can go across the board, right? It spans. I think people think like I'm in a relationship, and as a result, Valentine's Day would be just about him and I. But really, like, I woke up to my mother sending me a meme of flowers. Just the fact that my mother knows how to send a meme, honey, is everything.
She didn't ask you to show
right?
you
Exactly
before she sent it to you.
Yes,
exactly.
And a text from my sister, and I had a phone meeting before we did anything, and my colleagues and I had some really interesting, good conversations and laughed and, wished each other a happy Valentine's Day. And then Eddie and I got into our day and came back and also just took care of ourselves, right? Part of it is really just being there for yourself, and that doesn't stop when you're in a relationship. And one of the blessings of our relationship is that he knows how to take care of himself, and I know how to take care of myself, and I can put myself first and he can put himself first, and then we're free to come together to do together things. But together doesn't mean that any of us is responsible for the other one being happy or figuring it out, right? Or whatever they need to feel. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been in one of those? Amen. Look, have you ever been in one of those heavy relationships where it's like, you're here to make me happy. You're here to fuel me. Like, why didn't you? And that's not really coming from a place where you genuinely want to reciprocate. That's my thing. I think if you both are using it as a time to connect, that's great. But does it always have to be a Valentine's Day? It should be every day. Every once in a while that you're checking in with each other and just making sure that you're walking the same path. But there's a lot of individual work that goes into your own personal happiness, and using a day and some gifts and some dried up roses to try to fill that void ain't never going.
Those roses really got you.
I know. It really was a metaphor. Like, I wish I could have took some videos so that we could play it
right now
while we're doing exactly to show you sometimes people are literally fighting over dry roses. It was one guy had 2 in his hand and he was like, well, which one are you taking, dude? And he's just like, well, and he was just like, I'm trying to get up out of here and I need to get one of those roses. Which one are you taking? So, and I'm just like, okay, now is the guy gonna be like, I'm taking both? Nah.
Or did your girl really need the roses? Could you not have picked something else up? Because that's the other thing that gets me when I see
dried up roses. How about that?
For your guy, right? Anybody. That's the thing that gets me about the whole situation, is that the expectation for how love is demonstrated becomes so rigid.
Yeah.
Right? And we forget, this is a commercial holiday, homie. Somebody taught you what you want so they could sell it to you. Make no mistake. This is not some innate yearning, right? This is we were programmed to believe that somehow roses are the symbol of love, that we then need to move into these crazy competitive environments to fight over dead, dried up roses to show the person how much we love them, right? Is that crazy, or am I just overreacting?
I mean, and last I heard, dead dried up roses don't fill you emotionally. No. So my thing is that, you know, when you get to the meat of things, you know, Valentine's Day, just in terms of, you know, the expectation that you mentioned, and, you know, people's need to want to feel validation, I guess, is what it is, in a sense. You know, I just feel like people need to just scratch the surface a little bit deeper in terms of why they feel that they need these things, right? Why?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna bring this up. Fox News article.
Yep, Fox News article.
45% of people are craving some deep emotional connection with another person and wake up alone. 45%, Tia, that's almost half the people.
And, you know, if you give room for error,
yeah.
It's probably half of us.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's the 45 waking up alone. Exactly. How about the people waking up with somebody who still don't feel that deep emotional connection? That's a whole other sector of people. What is going on? What is going on?
It's crazy. I pulled up the article itself. It says nearly 45% of Americans report dreaming of a deep emotional connection with others, only to wake up with no one in their lives, in their real lives, mind you, with whom they share those kinds of connections with. Almost 30% report that they are unsatisfied with their ability to open up to people that they enjoy being around, and 8% say they do not have a single close friend. That's the one that really kind of tugged at my heart. Like, wow, 8% feel like they don't have a really close friend.
That's a lot. That's deep.
That's a lot. I believe everything. Social media. No.
That's the former social media manager.
It's social media. No. But good. You were saying.
I just feel like, how interesting is Valentine's Day? That almost half of us have absolutely no emotional or no deep emotional connection to a person that we feel good about. And it's a $1 billion day. Right? And how many millions of dollars are being spent on dried dead roses? Right? That's going to be the name of this episode, by the way. Dried dead roses.
I love it.
What is that? So what are we compensating for? We're spending so much time, so much energy, so much money looking for a way to compensate for the emptiness that we feel. And that emptiness is a result of us not having intimacy in our lives. Yeah. And yet we don't associate relationships with intimacy. We're talking about gifts, and we're talking about...
Especially not on Valentine's Day. Where's my chocolate?
Yeah. Talk to me about intimacy. What are your feelings about intimacy in relationships?
Well, I mean, I think you can get intimacy from various different things, right? You can have, at first, you need to have a very intimate relationship with yourself, right? First and foremost. And when you think about intimacy, I don't think a lot of people think about having an intimate relationship with yourself in terms of what really fuels you, what excites you, what it is that, you know, calls on your spirit, right? You know, what shakes your soul? What do you really, really want to experience in this life? And I was almost going to say achieve, but it's not even achieve. It's about what you want to experience in life, right? And being
such an important distinction.
Yeah, and being able to, you know, learn really what fuels you, right? Those are really the stepping stones and the stepping blocks to being able to achieve successful intimacy with other people in terms of friendships. Because, you know, if you don't have a deep-seated respect for yourself and how you show up in the world and what you expect to experience in this world, you can't reciprocate that in terms of a friendship, right? and friends might be another topic that we talk about, because there have been several situations and experiences just that I've had in terms of coaching folks when it comes to friendships, and people think because we like the same things or we have similar interests, then that automatically equates to friendship. And it's like, no. Right? We also have that misunderstanding when it comes to relationships as well, right? So he's cute, I'm cute, we like each other, you know, we've got chemistry, it's gonna work, you know. He buys me flowers and he buys me shoes and things like that, but there's a deeper sense of self-knowing that translates into our relationships, that allows us to have deeper levels of intimacy that fill this 45% of Americans that feel like they don't have this deep emotional connection, right? And it's really based in a lack of intimacy and understanding exactly what intimacy is for self, relationships, friends, and, you know, romantic.
Yeah, and how it is that you translate that intimacy even with yourself into a relationship, because I've heard time and time people say, you know, that they want to do things with people, right? And that's okay. I want to build a life with my man. But I think when we get in trouble is we say that, but what we really mean is I want to do it through that person. Right?
Yes.
You want to experience the world through that person. You want to learn about yourself through that person. You want to do all this stuff through
or
that
you want to hide yourself in that person.
In that person, exactly.
You know, like, okay,
yep.
You know, either way, you're gonna have to rip the Band-Aid off with that person. You have to rip the Band-Aid off yourself. Either way, the Band-Aid is gonna have to come off. But you don't understand, when you don't do your work as an individual, you may be sacrificing those relationships that you so dearly feel like you need and want, because, you know, there's steps and levels to this stuff.
And that perfect person ain't coming for the wrong you, boo.
No.
They're not coming for the wrong you. So you better work on getting the right you if you want that right person.
Exactly.
You know,
that right you, the best you.
You know, because everybody is so worried about being under a relationship. Let me tell you what I know for sure. I can't walk beside my man or have my man walk beside me if I'm all under him. Right? I can't be both beside him and under him. All right? And I love my man, no shade. And he loves me, but he can't be beside me or stand behind me if he's all up under me. It just, you can't do it. And so there really has to be such a healthy boundary in a relationship where people know who they are and love who they are, so they can come together and share a healthy intimacy, right?
Yeah. We can go down the rabbit hole.
We got some time. Tell me what you got, Alice.
We can continue going down the rabbit hole. We'll just keep it at dead flowers at Kroger. So in terms of, it's funny because one thing I did do this weekend, I will say, wasn't Valentine's Day, but I went to a local co-working place, and they had a mixer where there were about 20 people in the room, and we're talking about different current events and things of that sort, and talking about love and talking about loving relationships and things of that sort. And so we got into the conversation, got into the topic of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, and you know, our inability to be vulnerable, and our inability to even know what vulnerability looks like. It's like somebody come up with the definition of vulnerability, and it was like we're like missing the mark. So I thought that was eye-opening in terms of, wow, there are a lot of things that we need as a people, as a culture, that we don't even know, like, how to express, but we don't even know, like, the definition of it.
Right.
So when you can't express it exactly, you can't give a definition to something, like how is it that you are supposed to be able to express or sit in that energy, right? And the room, women struggled in the room with understanding what vulnerability was, right? Some of the younger women, I would say some of the older women in the room kind of got it, but it wasn't something that was, they didn't pop out the womb and was like, I know what, femininity is and what vulnerability is. So when we talk about like deep emotional connection, do you think that people really kind of know what that is? Like, do you think we teach people to know what that is? Or do you think that those 45% of, Americans are older folks that have gone through some things and they're like, okay, I learned about this and I realized this is what was missing. The potato salad wasn't quite done. It was missing it was missing an ingredient. And now that I'm older, I know what it is.
I think, first of all, I definitely don't think that older people always have that figured out. We could talk about those people later. But I do think that there is an imagination to some of those words. There is a fantasy to some of those words, right? And I think that people think about what they're missing and they lump it all up into emotional connection. And that's an umbrella term, really, for a number of skills, I think, that people don't necessarily learn or utilize or know to look for, right? And vulnerability is a skill. Being able to be open and being able to be trusting in an environment where you feel safe, even figuring out how to find an environment that feels safe emotionally is a skill, right? So I think there's that. I think it involves trust. I think it involves vulnerability. What we talk about, for people who are just joining toxic masculinity or toxic femininity, when we talk about the programming of gender roles and gender norms and the way that genders are taught to express emotion or identify emotion or respond to the emotions of the other gender, right? When we talk about all of those constructions, we really are so in the ethers of emotion, of thought, of connection, of relationship. And I don't really get the sense that people learn about that or think about that when they look at what they're missing. I think they look at a void. And in the absence of having the tools to identify, recognize, label, manage all of these skills, everything gets thrown in the void. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's probably a deficit, a cultural deficit for us when we think about emotional connection, that we just assume that everybody we say those words to has a sense of the same exact emotional experience, and that's not the case. For some people, emotional experience is just having somebody to watch cartoons with. Hi, that's me. For some people, that's what vulnerability looks like. For some people, vulnerability can mean sharing past traumas. For some people, vulnerability can mean planning a family, right? For other people, vulnerability is about, a joint bank account. So it does span, I think, the range of personal experience.
Cool.
What does it look like for you, Miss Tia Robinson?
I got a bucket full of emotional dependence and needs.
I'm sure the men are lining up right now.
No, I don't. Trust me. Listen, we pull back so many layers. You do your work every day. But no, I don't have a bucket, a plate, a cup, a spoon of any of that sitting around. It's just interesting.
What's the hardest for you to be vulnerable about, you think? Or be vulnerable with?
About very easy. What my needs are. Yeah.
For those of you who can't see us, I'm making all kinds of nasty faces over here as I have spent decades, yes, I said it, decades trying to help your girl Tia Robinson learn how to articulate her needs. Okay.
Denora
Speaking
has
of,
known me since I was like, what, 11? We've known each other since we were 11. So,
girl,
but here's the thing, eh, as a woman in her late 30s, it's one thing knowing, and it's another thing submitting to that knowing, right? Right. So I think I'm at the point in life where I've submitted to it. A couple of years ago, I might express, well, this is probably what it is that I need to work on or whatever. And I'm like, no, this ain't probably, this is it.
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like an oxymoron because I'm such an expressive person. I am such a blunt person, right? I think also growing up in New York, you had to have a certain level of thick skin. So
No, not us. No,
of course not us. No. No. And growing up in New York, you had to have thick skin. And so sometimes, you in carrying that weight of trying to perceive yourself in a certain way or get the perception of you broadcast in a certain way to other folks, you start to dial back and dim down some of those emotional needs that you have. You can't need anybody for anything, right? You've got all the answers, you got everything under control. There goes Denora smiling again.
Because the other layer I feel like we definitely need to add is being women of color, being urban women of color, being intelligent, successful, overachieving urban women of color, right? Or each of those words that I added as I kept expanding that description is another layer of denouncing or discouraging vulnerability.
Exactly.
Because you're taught, you don't want to fall into the stereotype of being the needy woman, right? So you already have that as a woman. As a woman of color, you're taught that your needs are not as important as the needs of your community because we're very family oriented. We're very community based, hold our men down and lift our parents up and,
loyalty.
And you got all of that, right? So you got the woman thing. You don't want to be a needy woman. You got the woman of color thing where you are putting community over personal, right? And then you have the overachieving, intelligent woman thing where it's like, right? So I have to be the one who figures it out. I'm the resourceful one. I'm the smart one. I'm the successful one. I'm the driven one. Whatever lie you tell yourself, I could give you my list of lies, but you don't want to find your own, So there's that. And then and being, like you said, an urban woman of color, which is a different experience because we come from New York and it's hard. Everything is hard all the time, hashtag method man. Everybody want to be hard, be easy. That's how we grew up. So I sympathize with you. I empathize with you. I lift you. I think as much trash as I talk about you having to get over that, I think we are all dealing with that on some level, and just being open in a relationship and being honest and being willing to say this is what I need it's a skill. It's a skill.
It is a skill. It's a skill that I've had to learn, so I don't have a problem with saying it anymore. Put the expectations out there.
Absolutely.
It is what it is, right? Because I think also when you put things out there, let the chips fall where they may. It saves me a lot of wasted time, right? And it allows me to step back and doing the things that I love doing for myself. Like I have absolutely no problem with being single and being by myself. I love myself. I have hobbies. I have friends that love me. I have family that loves me. I have interests. I have businesses. So, I trust in the fact that when the time is right,
it'll happen.
And the ancestors have commune and they're like, this person has been approved.
Yes.
He will show up. One time for the ancestors.
Yes. All right. Well, so I think here's the takeaway for today. The takeaway is that we put an inordinate amount of expectations into the world for what love is supposed to look like. And we forget that Valentine's Day often is used not to celebrate love, but to celebrate the expectations and to concretize the expectations, right? And the reality is that the expectations of healthy relationships extend far beyond the commercial marketing of a holiday, right? That we really should be looking for emotional connections that make us feel happy. Yeah. And that in order for us to recognize those, we're going to have to be happy already. Right?
By your damn self.
by our damn selves, and come into those relationships really whole and fulfilled and ready to share as opposed to expecting to be filled by those relationships. And so thank you all for joining us. This has been your girl, Dr. D, with Tia Robinson for our second episode of S.O.S, Sisters Overcoming Stress, dedicated to holidays and Valentine's Day in particular. This episode, we are talking about healthy relationships. Don't give in to the myth of competing with other people for buying dead, dried up roses. My God.
Exactly.
We'll see you next time on SOS.
Bye.